Fantasy football managers, brace yourselves. Week 2 of the 2025 NFL season is a minefield of tough decisions. Should you trust a quarterback who just threw? But here's where it gets controversial. Some argue that goal line TDs are situational. Do you trust Fields to keep it going, or is this a one-week fluke? Next up, Justin Herbert. The Chargers QB lit up the Chiefs in Week 1 with 318 yards and 3 TDs, thanks to a lethal combo of Ladd McConkey and Keenan Allen. This week, he takes on the Raiders, who gave up 287 yards to Drake May in a sloppy rain game. Herbert's last trip to Vegas ended with 346 yards and 2 scores. But let's pause for a moment. The Raiders' defense is a mess, but can Herbert maintain his elite form against a team that's already leaking like a sieve? Kyler Murray deserves a spotlight too. After an 18-point Week 1, he faces the Panthers, who struggled mightily against the run last season. Carolina's defense ranked 4th worst in fantasy points per game to QBs in 2024. Murray's ability to extend plays with his legs adds a safety net, and James Conner is a must-start in this matchup. But here's the catch. The Panthers' offensive line is a question mark. Will Murray's mobility be enough to overcome a shaky offensive line? Now for a twist. Dak Prescott. After a subpar Week 1 against the Eagles, Prescott faces the Giants, a team he's dominated for 22 fantasy points per game. He's thrown for over 300 yards and 3 TDs 5 times in his career against New York. The Giants' pass rush was lackluster in Week 1. And their secondary is paper thin. But let's ask, is this a bounce-back spot or a trap? The Giants' defense has holes, but can Prescott exploit them without a top-tier wide receiver like CeeDee Lamb? Players to avoid, QBs at risk of meltdown. CJ Stroud is a red flag. He threw for 188 yards with 0 touchdowns and 1 interception against the Rams, who pressured him relentlessly. Now he faces the Buccaneers, who generated even more pressure last week. Houston's offensive line is a disaster, and until Stroud proves he can thrive behind it, he's a liability. But here's the debate. Is Stroud's poor performance a fluke, or does it expose a systemic issue with the Texans' offense? Aaron Rodgers is another hot topic. He threw 4 TDs against the Jets, but don't buy the age is just a number narrative. Since 2022, he's topped 300 yards just once and relies heavily on touchdowns to stay relevant. This week, he faces the Seahawks, a defense that stifled Joe Flacco with a negative 0.11 EPA per dropback. Can Rodgers replicate his Week 1 magic, or is this a setup for disaster? Share your thoughts in the comments. Finally, Trevor Lawrence. Despite facing minimal pressure in Week 1, he missed open receivers like Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter. Now he faces the Bengals, who pressured Flacco into a nightmare game. Until Lawrence shows consistency in clean pockets, he's a gamble. But here's the question. Is this a coaching issue, or is Lawrence simply not the elite QB we once thought he'd be? The verdict. Fantasy football is a game of educated guesses. While Fields, Herbert, and Murray are your safest bets, don't ignore the risks with Prescott and Lawrence. And remember, injuries, matchups, and coaching decisions can flip a game overnight. What's your take on these picks? Do you trust Rodgers to defy the odds, or is it time to move on from the GOAT? Drop your opinions below. Let's debate.